it's John McCabe. Welcome to the show. Hey, welcome to the John A. McCabe Show, where it's all about accelerating your authority in your business or field of expertise. And we do that by helping entrepreneurs, business owners, authors, experts, and speakers get seen, get heard, get noticed on any device, anywhere, anytime, in as little as 15 hours, also known as the Authority Acceleration Blueprint. Now, with each show, I try to tell a story, bringing you, the viewers, to the conclusion that the person I'm interviewing is an expert or authority in their marketplace. They have a great deal of knowledge, something of value to share, and should you be in their market for whatever my guest is doing, that they may be an obvious choice to help you. Now, if I'm talking about a topic, I'm typically taking you through a sales process. Now, the entire show is planned and structured from start to finish. However, there are additional questions that get asked, or sometimes we go off on a different direction because it's a great story or relevant to you, the audience. Now, as a host, a marketer, advisor, coaching consultant, it's important for me to create a truly authentic show and do my very best to bring the greatness out of my guests. Now, if I didn't think they had something of value to share, then they wouldn't be on the show to begin with. However, it's my role to bring out in a very logical flow so you have some time to get to know the guest, get to like them, and get to trust them as well. Now, some already have authority and credibility in their marketplace, which makes my job very easy. However, there's will be lots of viewers watching who have no idea who this person is. So I must take people through the process to be most effective in connecting the guest with the viewer. Now, first, let me just talk about what you previously watched so far in this intro. Now, the countdown clock was a great addition to my show as it allows me to connect live to Facebook and give me time to get ready as I'm acting as both host and director. Now, since I run using Wirecast Pro 7 and need to conduct some switching between shots and media, it allows me to start the show with a lot less stress. Now, it also brings with the anticipation for the viewers and potential viewers. They going through their Facebook feed, they see a countdown clock, and they're more apt to stop on the feed and find out what is going to happen when the clock reaches zero. Now, second is the show-themed introduction that runs for 30 seconds immediately after the countdown. I had my video guy actually piece the countdown and the show intro together, so it's just one less switching step that I actually need to make. Now, I usually spend this time chatting with the guest as we wait to go live. Now, third is the segment right here that I'm doing right now. So what you're watching right now is pre-recorded. And I usually record this just before the show, so I'm wearing the same shirt or the same jacket, and it has the appearance of being live. Now, when I first started doing the show, they were actually live. However, I found it very difficult to host and produce the show at the same time. So using Wirecast to add in transitions, switching shots, it was way too many moving parts going all at once. So I decided to pre-record it. Now, fourth is the opening speech for the show. Now, it's the same for each show, and it identifies what the show is called, who the target market is for the show, who that should be, and informs them how it is I can help them. So just let me read that again for you so you can pick out the pieces for yourself. Remember what you're watching, who I help, and how I help them. Okay? Hey, welcome to the John A. McCabe Show, where it's all about accelerating your authority in your business or field of expertise. And I do that by helping entrepreneurs, business owners, authors, experts, and speakers get seen, get heard, get noticed on any device, anywhere, anytime, in as little as 15 hours, also known as the Authority Acceleration Blueprint. Now, next, I get into the introduction for the show. Generally, I have some guests on the show, so I'll talk about how we met, read some of their bio, so that I have a big picture of so you have a big picture of who this person is and why it may be important to you. Now, many times I'll bring up their failures or challenges they've had to overcome, so it's much easier for the viewer to relate to the guest. Now, it shows them as human and could be just like the viewer if they have gone through a lot of the similar challenges. Also, quickly bring up how they may have overcome adversity and if there's anything funny or unique about that person. Now, typically the pre-recorded video is just about 3 minutes long, give or take. So by the time I switch to the live shot of me and the guest, or in this case, just me going to share with you some great knowledge, then I'm typically at the 5-minute mark of the show. Now, next is a transition to the live shot of me and the guest when one is present. So don't go away, because when I come back, I'm going to dissect the main section of the show. Hey, thanks for joining me on today's show, Anything Goes Friday, where just as the name indicates, anything goes. Well, except for things I don't want to talk about because, well, let's face it, it's my show and I make the rules. So this is where the show is actually now live. I usually do an intro sentence or two about the show. Each day of the week has a very specific theme. So on Mondays, I do real estate investing. Tuesday is business strategy. Wednesday is entrepreneur's journey. Thursday is hot seat coaching, and Friday is anything goes. Now in this section, I talk more about the guest that is going to be on the show, the highlights of their career, and segments from their bio I haven't already said in the first pre-recorded section of the show. Now I also discuss what you'll learn or what we'll talk about during the show and why it may be important to you. I want to create some desire from the viewers for sticking around. For example, on a past show I had with my coach Ed Rush on there, here's a little sentence that I actually put in this section just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Now, Ed's going to share with you some of his knowledge and expertise and what it takes to build and grow a 6- and 7-figure coaching and consulting business. So you can see that that's reason to stick around if you're a coaching consultant and maybe you want to know what you need to do in order to build a 6- and 7-figure coaching business. Then after I do my brief re-intro of today's topic and my guest, I then reach out to my audience and get them involved in the show. And I typically do that by say the following. So please help me in welcoming our featured guest today with likes, love, shares, and a virtual flurry of thumbs up and heart icons going across the screen right now for my guest today, fill in the blank. And so that's your cue to hit the like button, hit the love button, and to share this video with all your friends. So go ahead and do that right now. Hit the like button, hit the love button, and share this video on your Facebook feed with all your friends. And then I acknowledge, at this point in time, I typically acknowledge my guest. Hey, Billy Bob, how are you? And then we'll engage in some general chat. So after just 30 seconds or so of general chat, I want to get into engaging with the individual, and we want to do a transition into a short quiz just to get the guests to open up and have the viewers get to learn more about this particular person, because a lot of people may not know who it is. So it really just gets some insight into this individual that I'm having on as a guest. So I also want to get the audience, I want to get you involved, and so I'm going to ask you to play along. So once the 10 questions are over, I ask the audience to engage again, and by showing the guests some love, by hitting that like, love button and sharing the video. So typically I'll go through a round of 10 questions, and some of them are business related, some of them are personal related, but it's really to get the guests to open up and to get the audience to be able to relate to the guests. And so it's at this point in time, again, I'm going to ask you to please like, love, share this video with as many people as you can. Because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create engagement from the viewers, keep them engaged in watching the show, and I want to get in front of more viewers. So the more interaction I can get from the guests, I believe the more Facebook is going to push my video out to other people. So the more viewers I have, the more engagement I get. So by people liking, loving, and sharing this video, I'm going to attract a larger number of people to watch the show. Okay? Now it's time to acknowledge some of the guests. So this is the point in time. So after I do the 10 questions and ask you to like and love this again, it's time for me to acknowledge some of the guests who are joining, and I want to do some engagement to help build a connection and a relationship with you, the viewers. So I tend to say, this is typically what I tend to say. Let's just take a quick peek to see if anyone played along and give some shout outs. So right now I'm going to give some shout outs, and the only person I can see that's joined me right now, I know there's more people on, but I just can't see their names. I know Teresa Spinelli's joined us. Welcome, Teresa. Thanks for joining the show. And see, I am just using my iPhone to see who's actually on. And unfortunately, it doesn't always give me up-to-date information. So if you're watching the show, just type in your name and just say hello, just so I can give you some acknowledgement. But this is the point in time in the show where I'm acknowledging people, and if they've actually played along, we'll actually make some comments about what they put in the 10-question quiz. Typically, I have a smart aleck in the audience by the name of Andy Lockwood, who typically makes some funny comments about me when we're playing that show. So it's always good for interaction. Chris Miller joined us. Hey, Chris, how you doing? And so right now, I'm getting ready to start interviewing the guests. So I want the audience to know they're free to ask questions, and we'll get them answered either during the show or after the show in the comments section. I'm also asking for more likes, more loves, and more shares. I'm constantly asking for engagement and interaction from the viewers because I want to keep them engaged in the actual interview to make them feel like they're part of the interview. So here's, just to give you an example, here's some of my normal lines that I say. So please type any questions you might want to ask and blank, and I'll see if I can get to them before the end of the show. And if we can't get them answered before the end of the show, what we'll do is we'll answer them in the Facebook comments. Just tag one of us and we'll make sure that your question gets answered. Also, please like, love, share this video with everyone on your Facebook feed, as well as any groups and business pages you might manage. So again, I'm constantly asking for engagement. I'm constantly asking for likes, loves, and shares. Because I haven't got loved enough as a kid. I just want you to like me, love me, and I want you to share me to the world. But it's a very specific strategy to keep the audience, to keep you, the viewer, engaged, and to make you feel like you're part of the actual interview process by being able to actually ask questions to the host that I actually have on. Now, typically, about the point in time, now typically we're at a 12 or 13 minute mark of the show, and I'm about to reintroduce the guest. So everything is actually timed. I see right now I'm at 1:14. Typically I want to be around a minute or 1:12 at this point in time. So I'm always gauging the clock because everything is timed and the entire project or the entire show is planned out. So like I said, typically I'm at the 12 or 13 minute mark, and it's time to reintroduce the guests. So from this point on, you'll notice that approximately every 7 to 8 minutes, I'm doing a reintroduction of the guest to you, the viewers. That serves several purposes. Now, the first purpose that it serves is a pattern interruption, such as Siri coming on my phone, for example, interrupting my flow. So the first thing is a pattern interruption. So this changes the flow of the interview. Because people will get involved or get into it, and every 7 to 8 minutes, the brain, if you don't change up what's going on, the brain will start to sort of veer off into other directions. So every 7 to 8 minutes, I want to change things up. So that's why I have different segments, and I do it specifically for pattern interruption. Now, the second reason, it's a clear place for the editing team to know where to start in creating a clip. Now, third, it allows me to change, gives me a chance to actually give shout outs, to engage with the audience, introduce a call to action by saying like, love, share this video on your feed, which is very important. So when the editor hears the line that I'm going to say below, they know it's the beginning of a new clip, and to start the editing process until they hear that line again, at which point in time they'll cut that specific clip. So this is the point where I reintroduce the guests using the bio, and oftentimes I'll say who they help and how they help them, which reinforces their authority, positioning, and enables me to connect with the audience who may be looking for someone just like this person to help them out. Now, this is one of my goals to the show, introducing the guests to a new audience in hopes that they're going to get more exposure and eventually new business. Now, as always, I always go back to the topic or question. I reach out to the audience again. So I'll say things like, please type any questions you want me to ask my guests, and I'll see if we can get to them before the end of the show. And if we can't answer them before the show ends, then we'll answer them during the after the show is aired in the Facebook comment section. Okay, so before the first question, I will ask if I left anything out. I'll ask the guest if did I leave anything out, or is there something that they would like to share with the audience in about 2 minutes, with respect to their origin story or where they came from and how they got to this point. So one thing you need to be cautious of is how much the person likes to talk, because here they can typically go off on a tangent, but you want to really let them know, in the next, 90 to 120 seconds, can you just fill in the blanks? Because you have to keep an eye on that because you're constantly watching the time. So I'll say something like, so guests, can you give the viewers who may not know your origin story, a 2-minute clip of how you got to this point? And I just keep an eye on sort of what they're saying and keep an eye on the clock as well. Now it's time for the first question or first part of the topic of the actual show. Now in this very first section, I'm going to start to lay the foundation or get some background info on the guest that I think is relevant to the overall flow of the show. Now remember, the entire show has been planned out. So from a show flow perspective, it needs to takes you, the viewer, on a journey. And laying the groundwork or foundation or bringing in relevant context is very important in this first segment of the show. So typically I ask 2 main questions in this segment, but I generally have follow-up questions ready just in case the guest is not very talkative. The timing for this section, as I mentioned, is typically 7 to 8 minutes, which is the ideal time before the brain needs a pattern interrupt. Most people cannot give their full attention to something that is continuous without changing things up for more than 7 to 8 minutes. Now that's why professional speakers are typically changing up their flow, speaking to a different personality types out of the 4 main ones, and bringing in involvement and engagement from the audience every 7 to 8 minutes. So here's an example of a foundation question I asked the previous guest, Ed Rush, during this segment. So Ed, how many years was it from the time you started your first consulting business to when you started working with Mike? And during that time, who were some of the people you learned from and who were some of your peers? So in that question, I'm accomplishing 2 things here. First, I'm showing that Ed's success did not happen overnight, that he studied and he worked with some great people, that he really invested in his education. And second, possibly giving him some authority by association to the people that he worked with and by working with Mike Koenigs, who has a broader reach than Ed does. So I'm merging 2 things, authority by association, as well as letting the viewer know that his success did not happen overnight. He put in his time, he put in the work. He invested in his education. So, we're really laying that foundation or that groundwork for establishing Ed to a new audience that he is an expert or an authority in his marketplace by sort of laying all of this out. So now, after I've answered asked and Ed and the guest has answered the 2 questions, it's time to move on to the next segment. So now we're around the minute 20 mark. So I look at my clock right now. We're at a minute 21. So I'm actually keeping pace with the show right now, with a typical show. So I'd want to close out the answers of the first segment. And from this point on, so typically what I do is I go into my reintroduction again. So actually I'm going to say the same thing every time would be my typical reintroduction. So now we're at the 20-minute mark of the show and I'm about to reintroduce the guest. From this point on, you'll notice that approximately every 7 to 8 minutes, I'm doing a reintroduction of the guest to the viewers. That serves a couple of purposes. First is pattern interruption, changing the flow of the interview. Second, it is a clear place for the editing team to know where to start in creating a clip. Third, it allows me to change up and give shout outs and engage the audience. Introduce a call to action by saying like, love, share this video on your feed. So when my editor hears the line, they know it's the beginning of a new clip and the start of the editing process until they hear it again, at which point you want them to cut the clip. Now, this is the point where I reintroduce the guests of the show using their bio, and oftentimes I'll say who they help and how they help them, which reinforces their authority, positioning, and enables me to connect with the audience who may be looking for someone just like this person in order to help them. That's one of my goals of the show, introduce the guest to a new audience in hopes they'll get more exposure and eventually more new business. So if you're just joining me, I'm dissecting the John A. McCabe Show, walking you through segment by segment as to the strategy, the structure, and why I'm actually, why I structured it this particular way, sort of really the behind the scenes. So if you have any questions you want to ask me, I'll see if I can get to them before the end of the show, and if not, I'll answer them in the Facebook comments after the show has already been aired. So if you haven't done so already, please like, love, share this video with all your friends on your Facebook feed, and type in the chat if you have any specific comments, and I'm just going to do some quick shout outs. So this is typically where I get into the shout outs again, and I only see that Chris Miller is the only one that is actually that I can see here, and Chris says, awesome, it's Friday and great topic today. So I'll acknowledge Chris and I'll say thank you, and I'll give him a thumbs up, and then I start back with the guest. Okay, so now we're in the second segment of the actual show with the guest, and this is where I like to get started, where find out from the guests where they got started and what obstacles they were faced and how they overcame those obstacles. So I'm using the script from the show that I did with Ed Rush. Now, when I actually, prior to having Ed on the show, I had a conversation with him, said, Ed, I'd like you to talk about consulting, because he has a consulting program that he sells, and he works with coaches and consultants. So he had asked me, is there any way that we could give the people the link to opt in and potentially get them in a sales funnel? I said, sure. So I know the end goal. The end goal was that I wanted to take people through the process and get them to come to the conclusion that if they wanted more information, they click on this link and they go get more information from Ed. So knowing that that's the end goal, I wanted to take the people on a journey by laying that foundation. The first segment was laying that foundation of who is Ed Rush. The second segment now is how he got started in the coaching consulting business and what obstacles he may have overcome. So one of the questions I asked Ed was, Ed, what was the first business you had built that did over $100,000, and how long did it take? And what was the first business that you built that did over $1 million, and how long did it take? So the answer, it was really a leading question, because when you know how to be successful once and the principles you use in that success, you can shorten the time frame the next time, and you can grow even bigger. Now this and it also leads into the next question about scale, and I'm seeding for his consulting course. So constantly throughout the show, I'm laying some seeds. I'm planting some seeds that might grow before the end of the show, where people think that, hey, I want to learn from this guy. I want to take his course. So I'm planting these seeds. So the answer for Ed, which was it took them the same amount of time to grow his first business to 100,000 that it did to grow his other business to $1 million. The reason it took the same amount of time is because the principles he used, he had compressed his learning time, and it was very similar principles. So he's able to do the same same thing in a much shorter time frame, and he knew how to scale. So all of this, it's all about the things that he's learned through his process. Because remember, I'm thinking, 6 steps ahead, that I want people to opt into whatever, to go to Ed's event, or I think it was had an upcoming event. So that was my end goal. So I'm leading people down a path to say, oh, okay, well, wow, this guy, it took him X amount of time to grow to $100,000. And then when he did his second business or $1 million business, it took him the same amount of time. So obviously he learned something. And so obviously he has a lot of experience and a lot of credibility. So I'm just trying to help build that throughout this process. And then I asked him a second question. So in the second question, again, it's, I'm seeding. All the questions are pre-designed because I'm really trying to seed these questions for his consulting course that we're going to talk about later. So it is very much planned out. The show is very much planned out in advance because I'm trying to give the viewer, a lot of information, a lot of education. At the same time, I'm helping the guests grow their authority, have it so people will know them, get to know them, to like them and trust them, and potentially do business with them someday. It doesn't mean they have to take action that day, but I've introduced them to a new segment of the population. And, potentially when the viewer is interested in taking some action, that this might be a person that they want to take action with at some point in time. Okay, so what I would do now, like I said, I would ask the second question. We would go through the second question. The second question actually is about scalability, which is a direct link to the first question, which is from 100,000 to $1 million. So basically, the next one is about scalability. How big is scalability when it comes to making $250K or building a coaching business over $1 million? So it's all about scalability. So because I'm planting these seeds, because I know in Ed's coaching, his training program, he has the tools and the strategies that will help a consultant grow their business and be able to scale it. So like I said, I keep planting seeds. I keep seeding questions with the end goal in mind. And now we're at a minute 29. So I'm going to close out this segment for the questions and answers. And I know at a minute 29, I'm close out the answer before transitioning for editing and the question and answer. Now we're at the 29-minute mark of the show, and I'm about to reintroduce the guest. From this point on, you'll notice that approximately every 7 to 8 minutes, I'm doing a reintroduction of the guest to the viewers, that serves a couple of purposes. First is pattern interruption, changing the flow of the interview. Second is to create a clear place for the editing team to know where to start in creating a clip. And third, it allows me a chance to give shout outs, engage with the audience, introduce a call to action by saying like, love, share this video on your feed. So when my editor hears this line, they know that it's the beginning of a new clip and to start the editing process until they hear it again, at which point I want them to cut the clip. So this is the point where I reintroduce the guests using their bio, and oftentimes I'll say who they help and how they help them, which reinforces their authority, positioning, and enables me to connect with the audience who may be looking for someone just like this person to help them out. Now, this is one of my goals of the show: introduce guests to a new audience in hopes that they'll get more exposure and eventually new business. And as always, before I go back to the topic or questions, I reach out to the audience again. So on today's show, I'm dissecting the Johnny McCabe Show, going through every single segment step by step and letting you know why I do what I do purposefully throughout the show to give you a clear picture of how you might be able to use some of the structures in your own Facebook Live show. If you're going to do a live casting segment, how you would want to put it together and how you would want to structure it. So if you have any questions you want to ask me, just type them in the chat and I'll get to them before the end of the show. If not, I'll answer them after the show in Facebook comments. So if you haven't done so already, please like, love, share this video on your Facebook feed to all your friends and in any business pages that you manage. So that's typically my call to action. That's what I say every single time. So I'm just going to like and love it myself. So now we're in segment 3, the third segment with the guest. Again, it's a 7 to 8 minute segment. Again, typically it's 2 questions. And what I'm trying to get out of this, generally, what I'm trying to get out of this is who do they help and how do they help them? Now, some of the examples I'm doing, I'm going through my script that I had or my questions that I had with Ed. So I didn't follow this specific structure to a T because I had a very specific strategy. I had a very specific goal that I was working towards with Ed. So some of this stuff is not in the same order, but what I'm trying to do is usually in the third segment is who does my guest help and how do they help them? So if I go back to when I was interviewing Ed, it took a little bit different turn, as I mentioned, because I was doing something just a little bit different than I would normally do with a typical guest. Normally, I don't have the typical guest with a very specific program that they're going to do a call to action on. With Ed, I did it, but with the structure, you're able to work around that because you know what the structure is, you know how it should work, and you know the flow that you're trying to take the viewer on, the journey you're trying to take the viewer on. So having that template or that structure in place and just being able to logically change things around if you need to change them around. And that's exactly what I did in case when I interviewed Ed. So typically this would be who do you help and how do you help them? So just let me take a look at the questions I asked Ed. So what I was trying to get at in this particular question, so Ed, obviously you're very successful before you jumped in and helped Mike out to keep his business running. So that adds more authority to Ed because Ed jumped in and helped Mike Koenigs out, who could be perceived to being more successful or have more authority than Ed. So, it's authority by association again, and that Ed was the one that helped keep Mike's business running. So that says a lot. So how much has your life and business changed working alongside Mike? Has it enabled you to get your message to a larger audience? So, the purpose of that question was to talk about the power of video, the power of live casting to grow your reach and exposure and your authority. Because even though I'm helping these guests with their message and who they help and things like that, the overall theme of the entire show always is accelerating your authority. And if you can use strategies and things that accelerate your authority, Mike Koenigs is very well known for video marketing and for using a lot of video in building his business. Which is all about, getting some exposure and some authority. So I've been trying to tie in the authority of the show, the theme of the show, which is the Authority Accelerator, trying to tie that in with the question and, Ed being able to reach out to a larger audience working with Mike because Mike has a large video or online video presence. So it just really, again, I'm laying that foundation. I'm really helping the viewer, in this instance, understand Ed a little bit more, and a lot of times, most times the viewer doesn't know the strategy I'm laying out or the path that I'm going down. They may know that I have, it's all been pre-scripted, or it's, I have specific questions that I ask, but they don't know it's actually a very specific structure and a purpose for every single show. So that's that question. And the follow-up question is really it's a seeding question again about things that they could use as free giveaways, how to get clients that talk. I'm trying to get Ed to talk about his consulting course. Hopefully, he can cover some of this in the course. So basically, he did a podcast experiment, and he grew a podcast in a fishing niche very quickly without, being a huge fisherman himself, using Facebook live casting, educating and making money from all of this stuff. Just really building his his reach. So the question was, what would you say there are the top 3 to 5 things a coach or consultant can do right now to accelerate their authority and increase their exposure? So basically, I'm asking him to give tips, to give some value, which is very important when you're trying to get new clients or bring in some people who could be potentially clients, is you want to be giving. You want to give value. So I'm asking Ed to give 3 to 5 things that a coach or consultant who is probably the audience that's watching during that show, that they can use right now to accelerate their authority and increase their exposure. So again, it's a seeding question, and leading up to his consulting course, so he could talk about various things that they could be doing right now to increase their authority, like podcasting, Facebook Live, live events, speaking on stage, things like that Ed is very well known for. So, again, it's a value question, giving value to the audience, as well as seeding what is coming up in a very short period of time. So it's a minute, or it's 1:38. So we're going to close out the answer before transitioning for the edit of the questions and answers. So now we're at the 38-minute mark of the show, and I'm about to reintroduce the guest. From this point on, you'll notice that approximately every 7 to 8 minutes, I'm doing a reintroduction of the guest to the viewers that serves a couple of purposes. First is pattern interruption, changing the flow of the interview. Second is a clear place for the editing team to know where to start in creating a clip. And third, it allows me to give some shout outs, engage with the audience, introduce a call to action by saying, please like, love, share this video on your Facebook feed with all of your friends. So when my editor hears this line, they know that's really the beginning of a new clip and to start the editing process until they hear it again, at which point you want them to cut the clip. Now, this is a point where I reintroduce the guests using their bio, and oftentimes I say who they help and how they help them, which reinforces their authority, positioning, and enables me to connect with the audience who may be looking for someone just like this person to help them out. Now, this is one of my goals of the show: introduce guests to a new audience in hopes that they will get more exposure and eventually more business. So what I'm doing right now is I'm dissecting the John A. McCabe Show segment by segment by segment. So every time I get to this piece is where I'm reintroducing the guests. I'm typically saying the same thing over and over for several reasons. One, we always have a new audience coming in and out, so every 7 to 8 minutes I need to reintroduce the guest to the new audience. And again, as I mentioned, it's a pattern interrupt, and it's a clear place for my editor to cut. So if you have any questions you want to ask me, please feel free to type them in the comment section. And if I can't get to them during the show, I'll definitely answer them at the end of the show, after the end of the show has already been aired. So now's the time I'll go and look at the Facebook feed on my phone and see if anyone else has joined me, see if there's any comments or questions. And the problem with looking at it on my phone is I don't always I can't always see every single person that's actually watching the show. Sometimes I see their name appear. A lot of times the number of people watching is different than the number of names that I actually see down below. So sometimes it's funny like that. So I can only acknowledge the people that I can actually see their names. And if there's any questions or comments in there, I'll typically read them. Now's a good time that I actually read them out, and we answer them before we get into the next questions. I actually had one show where there were so many questions, I ended up getting rid of the entire show itself, the show structure, and I did keep an eye on the time. So every 7 to 8 minutes, I actually checked the time and I would do the reintroduction. But the entire show was just nothing but Q&A. So my entire structure, my strategy of taking the viewer on that journey to the end conclusion was thrown out the window. However, because it was all about Q&A and we were giving so much value, it was a coaching show that I did with a coaching friend of mine, Joey Ragona. Because we were giving so much value to the audience, they were just loving it. There was more engagement on that show than a lot of shows I've actually done. So So right now, in this time of the show, we're in the fourth segment with the guest. Again, this is a 7 to 8 minute segment. And here I typically want to give examples of some success stories of people the guest has already helped. So I've laid the foundation. I've talked about who they help and how they help them. So now we're going to give some real life examples of what I'm trying to do here is have the viewer relate to the success story. So when giving these success stories, we want to do it in such a transformational way that here's the problems that the person had, here's their struggles, here's their challenges, here's what I did to help them out, and here's what their life is like now. Here's how much different it is. Here's how much they've improved. Here's how much I added to their bottom line. Things like that. So it's really taking the person on a journey. The story here, the success story, is really about. It's not about my guest. It's really about the person that they helped and telling their story of transformation, because that is more powerful than anything that my guest will say about themselves, is talking about the transformation of one of their success stories, because you, the viewer, are really going to be able to relate to that. You're going to, especially if you're in the same starting situation as the success story, you're going to relate to that situation. You're going to feel the struggles. You're going to know what they are. And by the end of this segment, you're going to think, well, I was just like that person. And this person and my guest was able to help that person overcome those challenges. And now look at what they're doing now. So the obvious, I'm connecting the dots. The obvious conclusion for you, the viewer, is if I was just like that success story and the guest helped them, I think that guest can help me. And that's what I'm trying to get across during this segment. So the fourth segment is typically, these questions are really to try to get some examples of success stories or people that they've helped. As mentioned, so just let me see. As mentioned, I'm doing an example of an episode where I interviewed my coach, Ed Rush. Now, I had a little bit different structure because the end goal for at the beginning, the end goal was to get people into Ed's consulting course. But it ended up changing throughout the interview that we just wanted them to come to a free event that Ed was putting on. So it actually changed midway through the interview as to the purpose of the interview. But I went into the interview with the main goal of trying to get people into Ed's coaching program. So this fourth segment, as I mentioned, is really about giving examples of success stories of people that my guest has already helped. So just let me take a look at the questions I asked Ed in this section. Ed, what tips, advice would you give for anyone watching? Share some 5 tips, implement. Okay, so that question was not, as mentioned, the interview with Ed did not 100% follow this format, but typically the format is in this segment, I want to bring out some success stories. So the purpose of the first question I asked Ed was, again, it was a seeding question about the 5 Ps. In his consulting course, he has 5 Ps. So I really wanted to get him to talk about the 5 Ps of his consulting course. So it's really a leading question, and it seeds what I thought was the end goal was to get people to opt into his coaching or his digital course. So the next question, Ed, you work with a lot of clients on a yearly basis, most of them entrepreneurs and lots being in the coaching consulting business. So here, with that statement, I've just identified, I already know that the theme of the show is targeted around coaching and consulting and how to grow your coaching consulting business to 7 figures. I already know that a lot of the people going to watch that particular show are coaches and consultants. So I make a clear statement here, subconsciously seeding with the viewer, stating that Ed works with a lot of clients on a yearly basis, most of them entrepreneurs and lots being coaches and consultants. So here I've just imprinted in the viewer's mind that Ed works with people just like me, if you're a viewer and you're an entrepreneur, a coach, or a consultant. So I'm planting those seeds. And then I ask Ed, what are some of the things that you help them with? So here, this is a clear, in this particular question, it sort of doesn't follow my set format that I have for most people, but in this particular question, I'm asking Ed how he helps his current clientele. So what are the benefits that people are going to receive when they work with you? Okay, so that's typically what I'm getting through here. So it's 1:47 right now, so I'm closing out the answer and transitioning for edit of the Q&A. So now we're at the 47-minute mark of the show, and I'm about to reintroduce the guest. From this point on, you'll notice that approximately every 7 to 8 minutes, I'm doing a reintroduction of the guest to the viewers. That serves a couple of purposes. First is pattern interruption, changing the flow of the interview. Second is a clear place for the editing team to know where to start creating a clip. And third, it allows me to give some shout outs, engage with the audience, introduce a call to action by saying, please like, love, share this video on your Facebook feed and all your business pages. So when my editor hears these lines, they know it's the beginning of a new clip and to start the editing process until they hear it again, at which point, excuse me, I want them to cut the clip. Now, this is the point where I reintroduce the guests using their bio, and oftentimes I say who they help and how they help them, which reinforces their authority, positioning, and enables me to connect with the audience who may be looking for someone just like my guest in order to help them. Now, that's one of the goals of my show, introduce my guests to a new audience in hopes that they're going to get more exposure and eventually new business. And if you're just joining me right now, I'm dissecting the entire 1 hour John A. McCabe show, segment by segment, talking about the strategy, the structure, why I do the things I do, sort of the psychology behind a lot of it. And as always, before I go back to the topic or questions, I like to reach out to the audience again. So please type in any questions you have, you want to ask me about today's show, and I'll see if I can get to them before the end of the show. And if not, I'll answer them in the Facebook comments at the end of when the show is already over. And I just want to do some shout outs. I see that Barry Schimmel has joined us. Barry says, I love the value, brother. Social proof is the best way to show value. Andy Falco has joined us. Hey, John. Hey, Winnie. So obviously Winnie's on, but I don't see Winnie's name here. Barry's saying hi to Andy. Andy's saying hi to Barry. So I'm just, at this point in time, I'm just trying to connect with the audience, really engaging with them, making them part of the interview is what I'm trying to do here. Whatever happened to make money while you sleep? I think that was, I think Ed talked about that. That's when you just do this on the, guys were saying, yeah, just do this on the internet and you'll make money. Anyway, so now we're in the 5th segment of the show with the guest. As always, it's a 7 to 8 minute segment. So here I want to get tips from the guest. So I'm not going to ask them, what tips can you give others, or what shortcuts can you give to help the audience achieve these specific results? So in this segment, I want to give value to the audience. I want my guests to give them some value, which is important, because in order for you to know, like, and trust my guests, which is what I'm trying to do throughout the entire show, is really I'm building that foundation. I'm talking about the struggles, the hurdles that they've had, their successes, who they help, how they help them, things like that. Now we're into giving some value to the guest, because we're going to give you some stuff, because before the end, we're going to ask you for something like opt in, or here's another free gift, another free download. So so I'm using this one specific one specific show that I did talking about when I interviewed my coach, Ed Rush. So I'm going through step by step. I'm going through the questions I asked him in every single segment and sort of dissecting why I asked these questions. But remember, it was Ed's is probably not the best example, because I had a different plan in mind. and that was to get people into his coaching program. So I structured it, the entire show, to try to get people to the conclusion that they need to buy into into his digital course. Things got changed up, so I didn't follow my own structure 100%, but it's still very close. So 5th segment with the guest: what tips can you give others, shortcuts? So here, what did I ask Ed? Ed, working with over 320 clients in a coaching and advising role. Okay, so planting a seed again, giving Ed a lot of authority, a lot of credibility. 320 clients in a coaching and advising role. So as the host, I'm advising the viewers, the viewers, of sort of Ed's track record. And so you must have spent a lot of time repeating yourself, even though everyone is different. Have you created tools, systems, or trainings that your client gets access to, or that you make available to individuals who aren't yet your clients, that they can work through on their own to help build their business? So this is a completely leading question, leading to the talk about, Ed's training and consulting course. So for anyone that's actually taking any of these courses, you know that all the information is in there that a consultant needs. So I'm basically laying the foundation and seeding the answer for what people might want to hear throughout the show is, this guy has lots of good stuff. I wonder if he has any tools or systems that I can get access to, without working with him. Maybe I can get access to some of the stuff he's already built, that he's used to build his $1 million company. I wonder if he has some of that stuff that I could use. So I'm kind of laying, building up towards that right now. So again, the answer is I'm trying to lead Ed to talk about the consulting training course, the 5 Ps. And then the next question is, what would someone get out of the service by going through the training program, and how is it delivered? So basically, the benefits of the program. So here's the point in time where the guest gets to talk about the benefits of their program, what someone's going to get, the desired outcome. Obviously, it's all about the desired outcome. When you're selling anything, you're selling the desired outcome. You're not selling the drill, you're selling the hole, the desired outcome, and that's what you want. So what are the benefits of his consulting course? How does he deliver it? Basically online, and he has an event. So talking about the event, which leads to, either that question could lead to two different paths. One is by his digital training course, or the other one, he could steer off and talk about events and say, we have an event coming up. I'm giving away tickets for free. And that's the approach he took, trying to get people into his event in December. So that's the 5th and final segment I have with the guest. What tips and shortcuts can you give? Really, I'm trying to give some value to you, the audience. So as you can see throughout this entire show, I've basically taken you on a journey with the guest to try to bring you, the viewer, to the conclusion that if you're in this marketplace and you're doing what this guest has already done, then it might be an obvious choice to work with this guest. So as I mentioned, the last thing was the benefits of the course, online event. Okay. So now it's time to close out before transitioning and editing. And now we're at 1:56, which is the exact time I need to be at for this part of the show. This is where I close out the show with the guests. And I'll say things like, that's all the time we have today with so-and-so. I want to personally thank you, Billy Bob, for being on the show and sharing with us, your journey or how you can help people or your strategy. And I'll try to post all your contact links in the comments section. Everyone show my guests some love by hitting that like button, love button. Be sure to share this with all your friends and associates on the business page. Again, I'm trying to get you, the viewer, to engage, to interact, and also to show the viewer or the guest how much you enjoyed the show and enjoyed listening to them by hitting that like button, love button, and sharing this with all the people on your Facebook feed. It's been a pleasure having you on the show, and now is the time where I'm gearing up for the close. So, I'll do any final shout outs just before we leave, and I see Andy Falco is laughing hysterically at something, and Andy says, I may have been seeing things. I thought I saw Winnie's name before I joined. Okay. So anyway, I'll just do some closing remarks. I'll say, any comments that we haven't got to throughout the show, we'll answer them after the show is already concluded in the comment section of Facebook. And so that is a little bit about, that's the entire structure of the show. So what I typically do next is go to, I close the show out. And I used to close the show doing it live. I would do a short transition and close the show. Now it's a pre-recorded. I'm actually using the same pre-recorded show close for every single episode, because what I've done is I've actually, talked about, I get into establishing your authority. I get into how I can personally help you. How to contact me by going to the Facebook page or going to the John A. McCabe website, johnamccabe.com website. So, and if there's anything, any opt-ins, we would have them put in the comment section. So, hey, Nobby's just joined us. The show is coming to a close. But what I'm going to do is, for this particular show, what I've actually put together is the entire show flow for this show, as well as I've put in the entire script and the show notes for this particular show. So I'm going to make that available as a free download. I'm going to place the URL in the comments section. So if you've watched this show or you want to get access to actually the structure, my show flow for the John A. McCabe Show, very much what I've gone through here, and the exact script that I've gone through in talking to you on the show today. I actually have that put together in a PDF that I'm going to make available to you. I'll put the link in the comment section after the conclusion of the show. So I'm going to wrap this show up with and thank you for joining me on dissecting the John A. McCabe Show, the structure, the strategy, every single segment, why I do what I do. So now I'm going to go to my typical close, and where I talk about a little bit more about how I can help you, who I help, how I can help you, and how you can contact me, as well as an example of leverage. So, one of the services I offer is an example of leverage. So, so my close is structured as well to try to get people to take some kind of action by connecting with me, and it introduces some of the services that I offer. So thanks again for everybody watching the John A. McCabe Show today. Be sure to like, love, share this with all your friends on Facebook, and I look forward to seeing you on the next John A. McCabe Show, where we'll talk with some amazing guests about something spectacular, and you'll know I'm going to have it all planned out so that I'm going to bring value to you, the guest, on that particular show. So enjoy your weekend, have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Oh, and don't forget to like, love, share this as well. I'll post the link for the free download in the comments section, so make sure you take advantage of that. It's a complete structure of the John A. McCabe Show, as well as today's entire script and breaking down every single segment of the show. All right, enjoy your weekend. Take care. Well, thanks for joining me on today's John A. McCabe Show, where we work with entrepreneurs, business owners, authors, experts, and speakers get seen, get heard, get noticed anywhere, anytime, on any device. Now, also known as the Authority Acceleration Blueprint. Now, if you're someone who's looking to take your business to the next level and want to get some coaching advice, why not apply to be a guest on today's show? Now, for most entrepreneurs, we want to create a life of our own, create our own path, and do what we can to reach our own desired outcome, which is generally freedom. freedom to choose what we want to do, when we want to do it, and with whom we want to do it. A life that's full of options and choices, where we worry less about money and more about the quality of time that we spend with others. Now, a great way to make that happen is to leverage other people's knowledge, time, and skill sets. Step one to reaching our freedom life is to realize that you can't do it alone. Working with a coach or being involved in masterminds is a great way for entrepreneurs to move their business forward. Now, a coach can help you shorten the time frame to get you from where you are to where you want to be, while being part of a mastermind is meant to bring entrepreneurs together, all with the goal of helping each other move forward with their business. Now, the second step to creating the life you envision for yourself as an entrepreneur is to implement systems into your business so you can streamline your operations, leverage systems, and free up your time to focus on your family, having fun, and the highest leverage activities in your business. You know, the activities that get you the biggest return on your time invested, the ones that truly make you money. Now, sometimes we just don't know what systems we need, how to implement those systems, or even have the time to find out what is needed. Now, working with a coach or consultant that understands, uses, and specializes in systems that can streamline your operations can help save you time, aggravation, and make you a lot more money. Now, for example, having a system or strategy that allows you to leverage just 15 hours of your time into enough repurposed content to get you seen, get you heard, get you noticed anywhere, anytime, on any device is a great example of leverage. Now, just imagine a system where you invest just 15 hours of your time, and the end result is you're a #1 best-selling author. You have enough content that's going to get you seen, get you heard, get you noticed anywhere, anytime, on any device. You have a successful podcast. Now, it's automatically attracting more attention, giving more value, and generating more leads, which enables you to attract an abundance of paying customers. Now, this is also known as the Authority Acceleration Blueprint. Now, to find out more about the Authority Acceleration Blueprint, coaching program, or mastermind, then contact me via my website at johnamccabe.com or connect with me through my show's Facebook page. Now, again, thank you for joining us on today's show, and I look forward to seeing you on tomorrow's show when I have another great guest on discussing their business and accelerating their authority. So have yourself an amazing day, and I look forward to seeing you again real soon.